Today, we're opening up a file that is, frankly, it's difficult but really essential to analyze. We're going deep into the reality behind mass production, looking at several documented catastrophic industrial accidents. These happened across the U.S., in the very places that process our food, shape metals, print packaging. Yeah, and the sources we're drawing on, they detail these, extreme factory fatalities, situations where just routine tasks suddenly became lethal, right? And our goal today, it's analytical. We want to understand the systemic breakdowns. Does a normal, everyday industrial environment and, built for speed suddenly become a death trap? We need to look past the immediate tragedy to see the failure points. And those failure points, they often seem rooted in, failures of really basic safety protocols, especially around massive, relentless machinery. Absolutely. Think about the people involved, someone checking the cart, a new guy taking a sample, a teenager cleaning a machine. These are tasks done thousands of times, routine stuff. Exactly. And the chilling thing is the contrast, isn't it? Between that mundane job and the overwhelming, almost unimaginable force unleashed when just one safety step gets missed. That's the crux of it. When you have that industrial scale meeting human error or just circumstance, the results are often instantaneous and absolute. It's these moments where the sheer power, whether it's automation, mechanical force, or even extreme chemistry, is just brought to bear directly on a human body. We really need to grasp what that scale looks like. Okay, so let's start with a case that really defines this danger of automated processes, sort of operating blind without human recognition. We're talking about the Bumblebee Foods incident. This was back in 2012, right, involving Jose Molina, 62 years old, at the Santa Fe Springs plant in California. Yeah, Mr. Molina was, by all accounts, a dedicated, longtime employee. He worked around these huge industrial pressure cookers, the ones they use for canning tuna. And when you say huge, we need to paint a picture here. These aren't like your kitchen pressure cooker. Oh, not at all. No. Think horizontal, cylindrical tanks made of heavy steel. They're over 30 feet long, built to handle immense pressure and heat. 30 feet. Yeah, massive. So his job that morning, it was early, like 5 a.m. He was checking on the carts filled with tuna, carts that were going into these ovens. But here's the critical point. The moment everything went wrong, he stepped inside. He stepped inside the actual oven chamber, The sources suggest maybe he was checking how the carts were lined up or, adjusting something small, a routine check, presumably, but nobody saw him go in. And that's the key failure point, erased by the environment. Imagine the factory floor. It's loud. You've got ventilation, forklifts, other machines humming and clanking. Constant noise, exactly. And visibility around these huge metal structures, it's often not great, even with lighting. And critically, the whole process is built for speed, for automation. So someone else, a coworker, just didn't know he was in there, completely unaware, sealed that heavy steel door, and pushed the button. Pushed the button, the system activated, steam valves opened, the cycle started, and the temperature quickly climbed. Over 270 degrees Fahrenheit, under intense pressure, 270 degrees, And what's so devastating and really points to the system failure here is how the error just persisted. Right, the machine just kept going. For the full 2-hour cooking cycle, the machine did exactly what it was programmed to do. There was no sensor inside, no check for unexpected mass, and crucially, no physical system preventing activation while someone was inside. The factory kept its rhythm, the rhythm of production, while he was trapped inside, cooked to death, which brings us straight to this fundamental safety idea. Lockout to gout. LOTO. The federal investigation pointed right at the breakdown of LOTO. For anyone listening who isn't familiar, what exactly is LOTO? Why is its failure so central here? It's absolutely critical because LOTO isn't just like putting up a warning sign, it's a physical guarantee. Lockout or tagout means that when a worker has to enter what we call the kill zone of a machine, the area where motion or energy release could cause injury, that machine is brought to a zero energy state. Zero energy, meaning completely off, no power at all, completely off and secured that way. You physically find the energy source, could be a circuit breaker, a steam valve, hydraulic line, whatever it is, and you apply a personalized lock. Only you have the key. And you put a tag on it that says who's working on it, why it's locked out. So the lock physically stops anyone else from turning it back on, correct? And the tag tells them why. Precisely. If that system had been followed, Mr. Molina would put his lock on the control panel outside that oven, right? The coworker would have seen the lock, seen the tag, known someone was inside doing checks or maintenance. Pushing the start button would have been physically impossible, but without LOTO, the machine was just seen as an empty vessel ready for the next batch, which led to that blunt finding from the investigators: a man cooked to death in the oven designed for fish. It's just the power of automation, totally unchecked by human scale safety. Overwhelming. Okay, so the tuna oven incident shows the horror of unchecked sort of thermal automation. Yeah, let's shift gears a bit to raw mechanical violence. The printing press incident. Right, this was in Los Angeles, 2013. A younger victim this time, 26-year-old Jorge Perez at Golden State Container, a packaging plant. Yeah, so here, the danger isn't heat, it's crushing force, delivered incredibly fast. Think about packaging plants. They use these enormous printing presses. I mean, these things are the size of small trucks. Wow. Huge steel rollers designed to stamp, grip, cut, fold thick cardboard sheets. They operate assuming only cardboard is going through that zone. And Perez was working near one. This makes me think about something you hear a lot of these situations. The normalization of danger. That's a huge factor, absolutely. You spend hours, shifts, days next to this incredibly powerful machine, and eventually that power just feels normal, routine, maybe even safe in a weird way. You're sent to the danger zone. It gets blurry. It does. And in that split second where perception is dulled, the margin for error just evaporates. You got too close, moved too near the operating zone, and instantly, the high-speed rollers caught him. The sources describe the sound changing on the factory floor. That steady thump-thump suddenly became this awful grinding noise. Shouts from co-workers to hit the emergency stop right away, immediately. But the inertia, the mechanical grip of these systems is immense. The machine stopped running, but it held him, trapped him deep inside the mechanism. Okay. And this detail really underscores the scale we're talking about. When the fire department got there, they couldn't just, pull him out or pry it open. No. The press was so massive, so rigid, they had to spend almost an hour dismantling it, piece by piece, using heavy cutting tools, jocks. Just to reach it meant out nearly an hour. And the finding was stark. The rollers, meant only for cardboard, had inflicted fatal, crushing injuries. The danger wasn't a slip or a leak. It was just proximity to that constant, overwhelming mechanical force. Needs constant respect and really robust physical guards. All right, let's shift now from mechanical force to, the pure, uncontained violence of extreme environments. We've got two cases here that contrast really different failure points, different ways death occurs. We're moving into thermal and chemical extreme. Oh, okay. Let's start with basically instant vaporization. The iron pot incident. This was at the Caterpillar foundry in Mapleton, Illinois, 2022. Caterpillar, yeah. The victim was Stephen Dirks, 39 years old, and tragically, he'd only been on the job for 9 days. 9 days, wow. Still learning the ropes in what sounds like an incredibly dangerous place. It's genuinely, hellish is a word that comes to mind. Picture a foundry melt floor, dominated by these huge open pots, 11 feet deep, filled with molten iron. Molten iron, how hot are we talking? Over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Just for context, lava flows are typically between, say, 1,300 and 2,200 degrees, so this is metal, glowing white hot. Okay, hotter than lava, red. The heat radiating off these open pots alone is intense, a constant physical stress. Dirks' task was routine for the job, but critical, taking a sample of the molten iron before they poured it, which means getting close to the edge, right up to the edge, often on a platform. And here's where the simple structural failure happened. Federal investigators pinpointed this. There were no guardrails, around an 11-foot deep pot of 2,000-degree metal, no secondary barriers, nothing to prevent a fall into the molten iron, and he slipped. He slipped, maybe a misstep, maybe fatigue, maybe the heat caused, a moment of dizziness. We don't know the exact cause of the slip, but in one single horrifying moment, he fell straight into that cauldron. God, when something that hot meets organic matter, it's instant, catastrophic. The source material says he was immediately incinerated. The thermal energy is just absolute, instantaneous death. And the aftermath, could anyone even help? Powerless. The radiant heat alone would keep anyone from getting close. First responders arrived, but there was nothing to rescue. They had to isolate the pot, let it cool for days before any kind of recovery could even be attempted. Days, yeah. And the regulatory side is telling. Officials found Caterpillar failed to protect workers from known fall hazards near molten metal, a textbook violation, really. And the fine, $145,027 for an instantaneous preventable death caused by a clear lack of basic physical safety infrastructure. Right, $145,000. Okay, now let's pivot from instant incineration to, well, an agonizing contrast. The acid tank incident, Michigan Seamless Tube 2019, involving Daniel Hill, 54 years old. If the molten iron was instant death by thermal shock, the acid tank was slow, corrosive destruction, so different kind of extreme environment, chemically toxic rather than just pure heat. This plant used large open vats of hot sulfuric acid, about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot but not molten iron hot. No, but hot enough, and it's sulfuric acid, used for a pickling steel stripping off rust. The air around these baths was heavy with mist, apparently, and the platform above them was often slick, and that's where he slipped on that slick platform just after noon, fell directly into the vat of hot acid. Oh no. Co-workers reacted incredibly fast. They pulled him out within moments. But with concentrated acid, especially hot acid, moments are enough. The damage is already done. Catastrophic damage. This is where the physics are so different from the molten iron. 2,000 degrees vaporizes you instantly. 160 degrees sulfuric acid, though. It's a powerful dehydrating agent. It literally pulls water molecules out of flesh, so burns chemically. Chemical burns, yeah. And they keep deepening as the acid soaks through clothes, penetrates skin. It doesn't just stop at the surface. Witnesses described it. I mean, it sounds horrific. Rushing him to a safety shower, trying to rinse it off, but his skin was already peeling away. Yes. And the real tragedy here, beyond the accident itself, was that he remained conscious through that. Conscious, screaming in unimaginable pain, even with high doses of medication. How long did he? He survived for nearly 11 hours in the hospital. 11 hours. 11 hours of that. It just highlights the terrifying nature of chemical injury. It's not just heat, it's the complete destruction of tissue integrity, and the fine in this case. The company was fined $32,500 for safety violations related to the platform conditions, exposure controls. So $145K for the missing guardrail and instant death, $32.5K for the slick platform, and 11 hours of agony from acid. That disparity feels significant. It does raise questions, doesn't it, about how risk is assessed, maybe how violations are weighted. Yeah, OSHA penalties often seem higher for hazards that are very clearly defined, easily fixed, like a missing guardrail around an obvious, immediate, high-consequence hazard like that iron pod. That's a slam-dunk citation, right, black and white. Pretty much. The acid vat involves managing more complex factors. The mist, the chemical itself, slipperiness, temperature. While the human cost is absolute in both cases, the regulatory system might penalize the most unambiguous failures of basic physical barriers more heavily. It suggests, maybe, that the cost of preventable infrastructure failure carries a particularly high weight in the fine structure. Okay, our last case brings us back to mechanical failure, but it highlights a group that seems especially vulnerable when a LOTO fails. Sanitation and maintenance crews. Yes, this is the burrito grinder incident. Tina's Burritos Factory, Vernon, California, July 2025. And the victim was only 19 years old. 19, yeah. Industrial cleaning, it often happens on night shifts. Sometimes it's contract workers, sometimes the youngest, maybe least experienced employees on staff. And the job itself means getting inside the danger zone. Exactly. Physically entering the machine's operational space to scrape down residue, wash parts, and the scale here, again, immense. An industrial grinder, size of a car. Steel blades designed to just pulverize meat, beans, whatever, in seconds for mass production. Sharp, powerful. So this 19-year-old worker was doing this cleaning task late evening, around 9:30 p.m., and the core failure. It sounds familiar. It's a LOTO again, violation of the zero energy state. Reports indicate the grinder was not fully shut down. How fully off? Meaning what? Meaning the power was still connected, maybe it was in a pause mode waiting for a timer. Maybe just latent energy in the system, or a sensor triggered it. We don't know the exact mechanism of activation, but the power wasn't locked out. No, and that latent energy proved fatal. As he leaned inside the chamber to clean near the blades, the machine just roared to life. Unexpectedly, violently. Oh my. His clothing got caught instantly. His body was pulled towards the grinding mechanism. Coworkers tried to stop, frantically tried to hit the stop switch, yeah? But the speed, the mechanical momentum, it was too late. Off. The sound of his cries, tragically, was heard over the machine's roar just before it stopped. It just starkly highlights the danger when you have to bypass guards, put yourself inside the kill zone of a machine built to destroy. If LOTO isn't followed rigorously, if that power source isn't physically locked out by the person inside, the defenseless. So this really ties together the three machinery incidents, doesn't it? The tuna oven, the printing press, this burrito grinder. It does. They all represent this fundamental failure to respect the operational boundary, the sheer power of these massive automated machines designed for crushing, cooking, pulverizing. And if we dig into that systemic gap, why does LOTO get bypassed? It's probably not usually malicious, right? It's more a human factor. Exactly, human factors are huge. Fatigue, maybe the sheer noise and chaos of the environment making communication difficult, or, frankly, pressure to keep the production line moving. Time is money. The normalization of deviance you called it earlier. That's a good way to put it. If cleaning the grinder properly with full LOTO takes, say, 20 minutes, but you can do a quicker clean in 10 by cutting corners, and there's pressure to hit production targets, right? Management pressure, or even just the worker wanting to be efficient, maybe impress the boss, can lead to skipping that crucial safety step. You do it once, nothing happens. Do it 100 times, it becomes the norm. Until the one time the machine glitches, or a coworker makes a mistake, or something unexpected happens, and the consequence is absolute. And looking back at those fines, $32 5Ks, $145K, do fines like that really deter a massive corporation? I mean, what's the cost of implementing a truly redundant, rigorously enforced LOTO system across a whole plant compared to a $145,000 fine after someone's already died? That's the critical question, isn't it? It feels disproportionate sometimes. The fines address the legal violation, sure, but do they fundamentally change an organizational culture that allows, or even implicitly encourages, shortcuts over safety, prioritizing uptime over human life? When it comes down to it, yeah. And when that system fails, it hits everyone we've talked about. The experienced older worker like Mr. Molina, the young, vulnerable teenager cleaning the grinder, the new guy, Stephen Dirks, just 9 days on the job, just doing their job, performing routine tasks, relying on systems that ultimately failed to contain the incredible power inherent in modern industry. The loss of a life. That's the real measure of failing to invest properly in safety infrastructure, yes, but also in a culture of safety and compliance. Hashtag hit outro. So this deep dive, looking closely at these accounts, it really illustrates a chilling and persistent truth about industrial production, doesn't it? The sheer scale, the speed of modern manufacturing, it demands this level of vigilance that, well, human systems under pressure often fail to sustain. Yeah, the core finding seems unavoidable. The catastrophes we detailed today, they weren't freak accidents in the sense of being totally unpredictable. They were rooted in systemic failures that were ultimately preventable, 100% preventable. Whether it was someone unseen inside a 30-foot oven, or missing guardrails by molten metal, or failing to de-energize a powerful grinder, these deaths came from known solvable hazards that were either ignored or managed improperly, or maybe the safeguards were just deferred. Okay, so we'll leave you, the listener, with his final thought to consider, reflecting on that scale of production we've been talking about. When we rely on these incredibly powerful machines processing thousands of pounds of tuna an hour, stamping millions of boxes, melting tons of iron, the margin for error allowed for the humans working inside those systems becomes vanishingly small, almost non-existent. Yeah, so the question is, how often does that familiarity with danger, that feeling of, I've done this 1,000 times, it'll be fine, how often does that become the silent partner in these tragedies, the thing that contributes to the one time the system fails? It's a sobering question. Thank you for joining us for this, necessary, though difficult, analysis of industrial safety and its human cost. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.